You'd think a first-round draft pick guarantees NFL greatness, right? The truth is, some of the most hyped prospects in history turned out to be complete disasters. I dug through decades of draft history, stats, and stories, and what I found completely changed how I look at the NFL draft. Today, we're breaking down the 10 biggest draft busts in NFL history. And trust me, some of these names will shock you. Number 10. Matt Leinart, quarterback, Arizona Cardinals, 2006, 10th overall. We start with Matt Leinart, a name that once carried superstar weight. At USC, he was untouchable, a Heisman Trophy winner, a national champion, and the kind of quarterback who looked calm no matter the moment. Scouts believed he would be the face of an NFL franchise for years. But when he arrived in Arizona, the game sped up, and Leinart never caught up. His arm looked average, his reads were slow, and the confidence he showed in college just wasn't there anymore. By his second season, veteran Kurt Warner had taken his job, and the promise of a long career was gone almost before it began. Over 7 seasons, Leinart threw just 15 touchdowns against 21 interceptions, a shocking drop-off for someone once seen as a can't-miss prospect. Today, he's remembered less for his college greatness and more as the cautionary tale of USC quarterbacks who couldn't make the leap to Sundays. Number 9. Justin Blackmon, wide receiver, Jacksonville Jaguars, 2012, 5th overall. Justin Blackmon is one of the biggest what-ifs the NFL has ever seen. At Oklahoma State, he was nothing short of electric, a 2-time Biletnikoff Award winner, widely regarded as the best receiver in college football. Every Saturday, he looked unstoppable, turning routine plays into highlights and leaving defenders in the dust. By the time the 2012 draft rolled around, the Jacksonville Jaguars believed they had found their franchise-changing wideout. With the 5th overall pick, they were convinced Blackmon was the kind of player who could redefine their offense. And at first, it seemed like they were right. In just 2 seasons, he hauled in 93 catches for 1,280 yards. Fans believed they finally had a weapon that could put Jacksonville back on the map. But then, it all unraveled. Blackmon's talent wasn't the problem, his off-field issues were. Multiple violations of the NFL's substance abuse policy led to repeated suspensions, and the league eventually barred him indefinitely. His career ended not because defenses figured him out, but because he couldn't stay on the right side of league rules. That's what makes his story so tragic. Blackmon wasn't a bust because he lacked talent. He showed right away that he could play at the highest level. His downfall came off the field, and those struggles cut short a career that could have been something special. Number 8. Trent Richardson, running back, Cleveland Browns, 2012, 3rd overall. Few careers collapsed faster than Trent Richardson's. At Alabama, he looked unstoppable, strong, explosive, and built to punish defenses. Scouts were certain his game would dominate in the NFL, and when the Browns took him 3rd overall in 2012, fans thought they finally had their franchise star. At first, it looked promising. Richardson scored 11 touchdowns as a rookie, but underneath, the problems were clear. He missed open lanes, ran into his own linemen, and the burst that made him special in college just wasn't there. By his second season, the Browns traded him to the Colts, a deal that ended up being a rare win for Cleveland. In Indianapolis, Richardson only got worse. He looked slower, less decisive, and completely out of sync. Within 3 years of being drafted, he was out of the NFL, a shocking fall for a player once seen as can't-miss. Number 7. Tim Couch, quarterback, Cleveland Browns, 1999, 1st overall. Tim Couch is a different kind of bust because his story is less about lacking talent and more about being thrown into an impossible situation. As the 1st overall pick of the newly reformed Cleveland Browns in 1999, Couch was tasked with carrying a franchise that was essentially starting from scratch. The problem was, the Browns gave him almost nothing to work with. His offensive line was a disaster, his receivers were below average, and over 5 seasons, he was sacked an unbelievable 166 times. The constant hits broke him down. Injuries mounted, his confidence began to fade, and while his final stat line, 64 touchdowns against 67 interceptions, doesn't look terrible on paper, it wasn't close to what you'd expect from a number 1 pick. Was Couch talented? Absolutely. On a different team with better support, he might have had a very different career. But in Cleveland, He became a reminder that even promising quarterbacks can't succeed without the right environment, protection, and patience. Number 6. Vernon Gholston, defensive end, New York Jets, 2008, 6th overall. Some busts are easy to explain. They looked unstoppable at the combine, but couldn't translate it onto the field. That's Vernon Gholston. At Ohio State, Gholston was a monster off the edge, a physical freak who terrorized quarterbacks and looked every bit like a future NFL star. Then came the combine, where he tested off-the-chart strength, speed, size, the total package. The Jets were convinced they had found their next cornerstone pass rusher when they took him 6th overall in 2008. But the dominance never came. In 3 seasons, Gholston failed to record a single sack. Not one. For a top 6 pick drafted specifically to pressure quarterbacks, that's almost unthinkable. He looked the part, but on Sundays, he disappeared. Today, he's remembered as one of the biggest draft mistakes in Jets history, and considering the Jets' long list of draft blunders, that says a lot about just how big of a miss he was. Number 5. Akili Smith, quarterback, Cincinnati Bengals, 1999, 3rd overall. Akili Smith had one great season at Oregon, but that was enough for the Bengals to believe he could be their franchise quarterback. In 1999, they took him 3rd overall, passing on future Hall of Famers like Donovan McNabb, Jaren James, and Champ Bailey, a decision that still haunts the franchise. From the very beginning, things went wrong. Smith struggled to read defenses and couldn't adjust from Oregon's spread offense to the complexity of the NFL game. His mechanics looked raw, his timing was off, and more often than not, he seemed completely overwhelmed under center. Over 4 seasons, he managed only 5 touchdowns against 13 interceptions, numbers that made it clear he was in over his head. Fans don't remember Smith for his brief flashes of talent. Instead, his name is tied to the painful reminder of the stars Cincinnati passed on. Akili Smith wasn't just a bust. He was one of the most costly missed opportunities in Bengals history. Number 4. Charles Rogers, wide receiver, Detroit Lions, 2003, 2nd overall. Charles Rogers' story is one of the saddest draft busts in NFL history. At Michigan State, he was electric, a touchdown machine with size, speed, and hands that seemed made for Sundays. The Detroit Lions believed they had finally found their superstar wideout, someone who could change the fortunes of a franchise desperate for playmakers. But almost from the start, things went wrong. Injuries piled up early in his career, robbing him of the explosiveness that made him special. On top of that came suspensions for substance abuse, and before anyone realized it, Rogers' NFL career was over in just 3 seasons. His final line of 36 catches and 4 touchdowns was a fraction of what was expected from a 2nd overall pick. What makes his case sting even more is timing. In the 2000s, the Lions developed a reputation for striking out on top receiver picks, and Rogers became the poster child for that dark stretch. His legacy? A painful reminder that raw talent isn't enough when health and discipline don't follow. Number 3. Tony Mandarich, offensive tackle, Green Bay Packers, 1989, 2nd overall. Some busts sting more because of who was drafted right after, and Tony Mandarich might be the most painful example. Hyped as the best offensive line prospect ever, Mandarich was a physical freak. 6 feet 6 inches, 315 pounds, blazing fast for his size, and strong enough to overwhelm almost anyone in front of him. Scouts called him a once-in-a-lifetime lineman, and the Packers thought they had found a cornerstone for the next decade. But once he hit the NFL, the myth unraveled quickly. Mandarich struggled with motivation, lacked proper technique, and his work ethic never matched his hype. Rumors of steroid use didn't help, and after just 3 underwhelming seasons, Green Bay finally gave up and cut him. And the sting? It wasn't just that Mandarich failed, it was who the Packers passed on. Barry Sanders, Derek Thomas, Deion Sanders. 3 Hall of Famers were taken immediately after him. Mandarich did manage to return years later with the Colts and looked serviceable, but by then, the damage was done. His name had already become a cautionary tale, proof that hype and measurables mean nothing without drive and discipline. Number 2. Ryan Leaf, quarterback, San Diego Chargers, 1998, 2nd overall. Ryan Leaf's story is one of the most infamous in NFL history. In the 1998 draft, The Chargers believed they had found their franchise savior when they picked Leaf second overall, right behind Peyton Manning. He had the size, the arm, and the hype. But what followed was a disaster. Leaf struggled immediately, throwing just 2 touchdowns against 15 interceptions as a rookie. He clashed with coaches, alienated teammates, and had a public meltdown with a reporter that cemented his reputation as immature. Injuries only made things worse, and within 4 seasons he was out of the league. His final stat line, 14 touchdowns, 36 interceptions, and a legacy of failure, earned him the label of one of the biggest draft busts of all time. But Leaf's story didn't end there. After years of battling substance abuse and even serving prison time, he rebuilt his life. Today, Ryan Leaf is a broadcaster and motivational speaker, sharing his struggles to help others avoid his mistakes. On the field, he may always be remembered as a bust, but off the field, his redemption is one of football's most powerful second chances. Number 1. Jamarcus Russell, quarterback, Oakland Raiders, 2007, first overall. And finally, the undisputed number 1, Jamarcus Russell. No player represents wasted talent more than Russell. When the Raiders drafted him first overall in 2007, they thought they had found their franchise quarterback. His arm strength was legendary. Scouts said he could throw the ball 70 yards from his knees. But talent only takes you so far. Russell showed up overweight, unmotivated, and uninterested in preparation. Coaches once gave him blank tapes labeled game film to see if he was studying. He later claimed he watched them and said he saw the blitz packages. In just 3 seasons, he threw 18 touchdowns and 23 interceptions before being released. He never played another snap. Russell's name has since become the dictionary definition of a draft bust. Anytime a new quarterback struggles, the comparison is automatic. Is he the next Jamarcus Russell? Before we wrap up, here are a few honorable mentions. Heath Shuler was drafted by Washington in 1994, but he didn't do much as a quarterback. Later, he actually ended up becoming a politician. David Carr was the first pick for the Houston Texans in 2002. He had talent, but he got sacked 76 times as a rookie, and that pretty much ruined his career. Keyjana Carter was the Bengals' top pick in 1995. Sadly, he tore his knee in his very first preseason game, and things never worked out after that. And then there's Lawrence Phillips. He was a great running back on the field, but too many problems off the field cut his career short. Every one of these guys was once seen as the next big thing. Fans got excited, coaches put their trust in them, and everyone thought they couldn't miss. But football's tough. Injuries, the wrong team, or bad choices can turn a dream into a letdown really fast. That's the draft for you. For every star, there's a bust. So when draft night comes, just remember the name you hear could be the next legend or the next cautionary tale. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments who you think is the biggest draft bust of all time.